Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Pro tip: the BBB connects people with businesses they can trust. So think of the BBB as the better. Check with the BBB first, because better businesses are honest and commit to high ethical standards bureau. That's why they're better. Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
we're now on mute. Can you hear it?
Hey guys, are you able to hear us? Feel free to type in the chat or questions and just let us know if you can hear us. We'll get started here in a little bit. All right, guys, we're gonna get started here in a little bit. And then just want to, glad you guys can hear us. I'm gonna turn it over to Spencer Hill, who is our business development manager.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate that. Today, we are really lucky to have the New Mexico Independent Auto Dealers Association in the house with us. They were originally formed in 1962 with the original goal to advance the interests of the independent automobile dealer and the auto industry as a whole in the state of New Mexico, while at the same time protecting the public by maintaining the highest standards of business practice among dealers and related concerns. Now, over 60 years later, NMIDA continues to serve New Mexico's independent auto dealers industry and its citizens with a wide array of services, education, research, policy development, and lobbying at the local state level. We're really lucky to have the executive director, Marc Powell, in the house. Thank you so much for joining us, Marc.
Thanks for having me.
We are going to talk today about the black market auto sales and why that is such a big issue in the state of New Mexico right now.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate so much our partnership with the Better Business Bureau, in our effort to sort of protect our neighbors, protect our communities from, the worst sort of ripoffs. And one of the worst ripoffs is what happens with black market auto sales. And one of the reasons that we focus this time of year on this is because we're in tax season. People are starting to get their tax returns back. and folks are looking to replace their cars. And it's a time when these black market dealers really focus. So basically, any car you see on the side of the road is probably a black market dealer. Now, what's the difference? A black market dealer is an unlicensed dealer who's selling, sort of more than 4 cars a year. But they're often selling vehicles they don't actually have full ownership of. And that's a super big problem because it allows for ghost cars and it allows for people to really get ripped off without knowing what's going on. So if we go to the first slide, the issue at hand is that often these folks who park on the street corners or who advertise on Craigslist and on other Facebook Marketplace, they pose as legitimate dealers, but in fact, they aren't licensed, they aren't bonded, they aren't insured, they aren't required to do continuing education. Licensed dealers have to do all those things, but more importantly, they have to have a place of business. So these folks repeatedly flip cars that they never pay taxes on, they never actually own, and they will actually put fake dealer tags, paper dealer tags in the back window to make people believe that they are an actual dealer. So if we go to the next slide, and what happens is these are ghost cars because black market dealers, black market sellers never title and register the vehicle in their own name because that would require them to pay taxes and acknowledge that it's them that's selling it. And so these are vehicles that have open titles that no one knows who really owns them at the moment. And when they drive around town, the police officers don't know. But one of the key things about these ghost cars that are for sale is that you have literally no protection aside from having to go and sue a ghost because these black market dealers disappear right after they get their money. So if we go to the next slide, please. So there's a significant impact in risk of using your tax money to go and buy a car off of one of these sort of online entities. And the key thing is you have no idea what the mechanical condition of the vehicle is. Unlike going into a dealership where you know that it's got a 15-day, 500-mile warranty and the dealer has done reconditioning, these vehicles on the street you have no idea about.
Mark, if I could just interject just really quick about that risk that you take there. What is the typical, I guess, checklist that a dealership goes through whenever they do receive a used car before they're able to resell it?
So one of the first things they have to do is make sure that the title is legitimate and disclose, is it a salvage, is it not a salvage title? These private black market sellers are often selling vehicles that are salvaged, but the title itself has not been marked salvage, and you don't find out until after. So that's the first thing the dealer does. The second thing they do is safety, fluids, basically the dealer would go through to make sure the vehicle's safe and reliable. That's really their legal requirement. And if they have a problem, they have both a bond and they generally have an insurance. Whereas you buy it off the street, you are taking, you're taking your own risk about it. So one of the issues can be title problems, in addition to sort of the problem of it maybe not being a salvage vehicle that isn't marked. It might be a stolen vehicle. It might be a fake title that someone's handing you. So those are the things. And the other issue is that last July, a new law came into effect in New Mexico where the MVD is not going to be allowed to transfer an open title. So in other words, if someone has a title that has multiple openings, been sold multiple times, and it doesn't go through a dealership, MBD is not going to be able to title them. And I guess the key is, what's the checklist for the consumer? Look, if you're going to be answering and looking at sort of ads online, there are certain things you want to do before you ever even, if we go to the next slide, it'll sort of show you the difference, right? So the difference between a black market sale and a legal private sale. Look, it's totally legal and acceptable for a person to sell a vehicle that is titled and registered in their name to another individual. And that's a normal private sale. And those are the kinds that if you're out looking privately, you want to make sure that the vehicle actually belongs to the person who's selling it, which means that both the title and the registration are in the name of the person who's selling it to you.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that a private sale is untrustworthy.
No, you just have to be super cautious, right? And that's, and really it's, there are things you can do to protect yourself. And that's really, I think, the point of today, is to help consumers understand how you protect yourself, especially New Mexico consumers, because, you know, people want to find that $5,000, $6,000 car that they can pay cash for and not have a payment. So let's go to the next slide where we talk a little bit about protecting yourself. So number one, if you see a vehicle parked on a curb, I would not recommend stopping for it. Those are almost always black market sellers, and you're going to be setting yourself up for a problem. Now, when you are looking online and you look at multiple vehicles, look to see if the same phone number keeps showing up under multiple vehicles. In all likelihood, if you see the same phone number under multiple vehicles, that's going to be your first indication that it's a black market seller. Someone who's selling their own vehicle usually only has one for sale at a time. And so even then, if you don't see multiple phone numbers, when you first contact the seller, you want to ask them specific questions. And the first one is, do you have the title? And is the title in your name? Is this vehicle registered in your name? Now, if it's a black market dealer, you're going to get a tap dance, where there's no possibility that it's true. So they bought it. It's their auntie's and she signed the open title, no problem. Look, that is going to be a black market seller, full stop. And it's an illegal sale. And look, MPD might still transfer the title, but increasingly they're trying to educate New Mexicans that if the name of the owner is not printed on the title, the person selling it to you, then it's probably not going to be able to be retitled in your name, which means that it becomes a permanent ghost vehicle and a permanent risk for criminal activity and being non-insured. You know, New Mexico has one of the highest uninsured vehicle rates in the country at 24.5%. That means 1 out of 4 cars out there doesn't have insurance. And that's why we pay such a big uninsured motorist premiums here in New Mexico. All right, so let's get back really quickly to how you protect yourself. First, you call them, you ask that question. If the answer is no, it's not my name, hang up. Don't even bother going to look at that vehicle. Now, let's assume that you actually find a private individual's vehicle for sale, which is a tough thing to do. It's generally going to be a vehicle that they have owned. They can talk about the history of the vehicle. Ask them, how long have you owned the car? Inquire as to how they've maintained it. See if they have any service records when you go to visit the vehicle. And absolutely, make sure they show you their driver's license and their title, and make sure that the driver's license name matches the name printed on the title. Now, assuming all of that's good, you absolutely need to take the car for mechanical inspection. And I know that they're charming, it's a beautiful car, only drove on Sundays, right? But the fact is, you have no idea what you're buying. The $100 that you're going to spend on a pre-purchase mechanical inspection is crucially important to protecting yourself if you're buying a private vehicle. And look, if nothing else, you at least know what problems you're buying. Worst case, it gives you something to negotiate price on, right? So a mechanical inspection is super important, right? And then, finally, I think it's also important to photograph and document everything. Take a picture of the seller's ID. And that's really the key things that you do to protect yourself. That mechanical inspection is super, super important.
And to summarize that, and the importance of those steps that you just talked about, when is the right time to walk away? I know the next slide kind of goes over that.
Yeah, why don't we flip to the next slide and we'll talk about when to walk away. So if you look at that title and the title is not in the same name as on that person's driver's license, walk away. They're not going to show you their driver's license, walk away. Now, you can go onto the web, and it's not a bad idea, but one of the things is to use either Carfax or AutoCheck. Now, it's going to cost you $30 or something, and you put the VIN in, the vehicle identification number, and that $30 is going to tell you the entire history of the vehicle as known by public records. Was it ever in an accident? Was it ever salvaged? Is the mileage accurate? Because that's one of the things that you can't know also, is whether or not the vehicle mileage as it's shown is accurate or not. But it's helpful to get one of those kinds of reports. Now, the final thing you could do in terms of checking out the vehicle is that there's a database in the US called the NCIC list, the National Crime Information Center list. And that lists every stolen vehicle in the United States. And you can go online, put in the VIN, and see whether it's reported as a stolen vehicle. And those are the title issues. Look, if the seller won't allow you to take it to your mechanic for an inspection, for pre-purchase mechanical inspection, walk away, right? And obviously, if your mechanic tells you, look, there's a lot of super expensive problems here, you're going to want to walk away. And then again, finally, make sure everything matches and get a photo on your phone of that. And those are the ways to protect yourself. But the key thing is making sure it's a private sale. And look, if it sounds too good to be true, probably is. That's right.
That's a good rule of thumb, right?
That's a relatively good. But we primarily want to sort of open up and see what questions you have about how the process works and how to protect yourself in other states. Obviously, I believe it's a great idea. There's still $5,000 to $10,000 cars at independent dealerships. And that doesn't solve all your problems. But what it does do is give you a certain level of protection. And so I guess really I just want to open it up, see if anybody has any questions or comments about how to go forward.
While we wait for some people to post some questions in the chat there, I do want to ask you about your Black Market Auto Sales Awareness Month that you have going on right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, as part of our commitment really to our neighbors and to our community is that we have this Black Market Auto Sales Awareness Month. basically decided to do it this year during tax season. So as the cash is coming in, people will begin to see us with advertisements in local papers, on radio shows, local television. And we have a spot on our website where you can report black market sales and black market activity across the state. Because it turns out that it's not just a big city problem. This happens in small towns where people pose as dealers all the time.
Absolutely. So one of the questions we have here is talking about that 15-day, 500-mile warranty.
Yeah.
Can you just summarize that one more time and explain, basically in simple terms, what that is and why that's important?
So what that is that all licensed, bonded, and insured dealers in New Mexico have to provide a minimum 15-day, 500 or 500-mile warranty on their vehicles. And it's not just a powertrain warranty. It essentially covers anything that's required to have the vehicle operate effective on a public road. So, you know, if the tires are a problem, if the brakes are a problem, if the transmission's a problem, if the engine's a problem, if the heater or the air conditioner's a problem, all of that has to be dealt with by the dealer as part of their obligation to their consumers here in New Mexico.
Another question we have in here is there anything you can do if you accidentally buy a salvaged car?
You mean from a private seller? Yeah, there is. You know, you can take them to small claims court.
Okay.
Of course, you have to know their name, you have to know their address, and you have to go through the challenges of going to court. You know, with at least with registered dealers, you can go to the Attorney General, you can go to plaintiff's attorneys who work for free. You know, there are lots of options when you buy from a dealership versus on the street. Essentially, you're on your own, so you got to make sure it's a good car and a good title.
And this one, although it might be a silly question, why do black market car salespeople use street corners or abandoned lots in the first place? You would think that'd be kind of obvious.
Well, because I think most people don't know the risks they're taking. And it's a fun thing to do on a Sunday afternoon, right? You see 5, 6, 10 cars parked in an abandoned Pizza Hut lot. And so it's fun to stop. There's multiple cars. They look like a great deal. Yeah, so that's why they do it. It's because it works.
And finally, how can you report a vehicle if it's suspected to be a black market vehicle?
So if you take a photo of the VIN, you know, they're usually under the windshield or on the inside door. Take a photo of that VIN and just send it to us at the NMIDA, info@nmida.com.
Okay.
And we will work with state regulators and state police and local authorities, wherever they are, to figure out where is that vehicle from, who's the registered owner versus who's possessing it and trying to sell it. And we can often go to, you know, if it turns out it's stolen, we work with the state audit theft task force and try to sort of resolve those issues.
Got it.
And we're happy if you get taken advantage of. Feel free to call us at the association. We will try to assist you, but ultimately you're probably going to end up in court having to sue short person, assuming you can find it.
Austin, do we have anything else in the chat, or are we looking good?
Not at this time, but if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to type them in. I did also provide information for NMIDA. You can email them at info@nmiada.com or on their website, nmiada.com as well.
And then just one last question to kind of wrap things up here, Mark. What risks do black market cars cause for other people in the community besides just the buyer itself?
Well, the problem, number one, is most of them are ghost cars. They're not registered, they're not titled. And so these are uninsured, and they're often used in crimes. So these vehicles are purchased by nefarious folks. Black market sellers love selling to criminals who will pay cash and never register them, never. And so they become permanent part of the crime. So that, and that affects everyone. And because of the fact that most of these vehicles aren't insured properly, they add to our insurance rates, they add to the crime rate. And, New Mexico citizens suffer because no tax is ever paid on any of the purchases or sales. So the state does not get the motor vehicle excise tax from the purchase. They get registration fees. And we find ourselves in a place where police officers pull these cars over and have no idea who's inside, no idea what risk they're facing. And so it's a dirty business that we really like to shut down because it hurts everyone.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. If people want to learn a little bit more information about Black Market Auto Sales Awareness Month, where can they go for that information?
They can go to our website, www.nmiada.com, and there is a section for black market vehicles and where you can report a black market seller or a vehicle that if you have an issue with, we'd be happy to connect you to state agencies if we can help you there.
All right, that'll do it. Thank you again, Mark. Really appreciate it. And thank you to everybody that joined in on today's webinar. We really appreciate your time. And if you do have any more questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us and we will get you linked in with Mark and everybody over at NMIADA.
Happy leap year, everybody.